Listen, you're a sick, pathetic woman. I've already filed for divorce. This house and the car will be mine, and after that, I'm marrying my girlfriend. My husband screamed at me, announced our divorce, and threw me out while I was gravely ill. He took everything, convinced he had won. He was wrong, deeply wrong. In just a few days, he would be the one calling me in tears. Before we begin the story, please drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. And don't forget to like the video and subscribe so the channel can grow and bring you more stories. Maria lay in a king-sized bed that felt cold, even as a fire raged through her body. The thin nightgown she usually wore around the house was soaked through with sweat. Her throat was raw and parched. Every breath was painful. For 2 days, she had been confined to her bed, completely helpless. That morning, she had asked her husband, Kyle, to buy fever reducers and antibiotics. But night had fallen, and Kyle still hadn't returned. The large house was silent, too silent. The only sound was the ticking of the grandfather clock in the living room, as if counting down the last remnants of her patience. Maria tried to reach for the glass of water on the nightstand, but her hands were trembling violently. The glass slipped from her fingers, landing softly on the thick carpet, spilling the last of its contents. Maria could only close her eyes, fighting back despair. Kyle had changed over the last year. Ever since he was promoted to vice president at his firm, he had become arrogant. He often came home late at night and constantly blamed Maria for everything. The breaking point had come 3 months ago, when Maria started coughing frequently and becoming easily fatigued. Kyle showed no sympathy. Instead, he called her a sickly woman. He seemed to have forgotten that Maria was the wife who had stood by him when they had nothing, living in a tiny, rented apartment. Now, none of that mattered. A car pulled into the driveway. Maria felt a flicker of relief. Kyle was finally back. Surely, he had her medicine. She tried to sit up, propping her aching back against the headboard. She expected Kyle to open the door and hand her the pills. The front door slammed shut. Heavy, rapid footsteps followed, not the steps of a concerned man, but an angry one. The bedroom door flew open, revealing Kyle's tall figure. He was still in his impeccable dress shirt. His hair was perfectly styled, his face handsome, but the look he gave Maria was filled with hatred. He wasn't carrying a pharmacy bag. In his hand was a thick manila folder. Kyle. Maria's voice was hoarse and weak. "Where's my medicine? My head is killing me, honey. I have a fever." Kyle let out a sharp, cutting laugh. "Medicine? I brought something better than medicine. This is a cure for both of us. A cure that will fix my life," he said. He stepped forward and tossed the folder onto the comforter covering Maria's legs. She flinched, staring at the folder in confusion. "What is it, honey? Open it, if you don't want to die of curiosity," Kyle snapped coldly. Mustering what little strength she had, Maria picked up the folder. Her trembling fingers struggled to open it. She pulled out several sheets of paper. At the top of the first page, she read the words, "Petition for dissolution of marriage." Maria's world stopped. The air left her lungs. The feverish heat drained from her body, replaced by a chill that pierced her to the bone. She looked up at Kyle, searching her husband's eyes for any sign of hesitation, but saw only satisfaction. "Divorce?" she whispered in disbelief. "Why are you surprised?" Kyle sneered. He sat on the edge of the bed but kept his distance as if Maria disgusted him. "Listen, you sick, useless woman. Do you think I want to spend the rest of my life taking care of someone like you? I've already handled everything. The divorce papers are filed." Kyle stood up again and began pacing the room like a man giving a speech. "I've had enough. Enough of watching you cough every day. Enough of seeing you lie in bed with no energy. You're a burden on my life." "Honey, what did I do wrong?" Maria tried to speak, but tears welled up in her eyes. Your mistake is being broke. You have nothing to offer me." Kyle swept his arm around the luxurious room. "Look at all this. This house, this expensive furniture, the luxury sports car in the garage. It's all going to be mine. I'm the one who worked hard for all of it. Everything is in my name." Maria remained silent. There was something behind her gaze that Kyle couldn't read. He mistook her silence for defeat. "Are you listening? You won't get a single penny. Division of assets? Don't even dream of it. You brought nothing into this house, and you'll leave with nothing." Then, Kyle delivered the words that shattered what was left of Maria's heart. "When this is all over," he said, his face lighting up, "I'm marrying my girlfriend, Jenna. She's so much healthier, so much more beautiful, and most importantly, she understands my status as a successful man, unlike you." Maria closed her eyes. So, there was another woman. She didn't know the name, but the pain was devastatingly real. "I don't want to see your face in this house tomorrow morning," Kyle added cruelly. "You have until dawn. Get out of this house by morning. Don't take anything but the clothes on your sick body." Kyle looked at Maria, who was now crying silently, hot tears streaming down her pale cheeks. "Tears won't change anything. The papers are already filed. The process will be quick." He turned away and adjusted his shirt. "I'll be sleeping at a luxury high-rise downtown with Jenna tonight. I don't want to be under the same roof as you. I'll send someone tomorrow morning to make sure you're gone." Maria wanted to scream, to curse him, but she had no strength left. She could only watch as her husband's back disappeared through the doorway. The bedroom door clicked shut. A moment later, the front door slammed. Then came the roar of Kyle's car as it sped away. Maria was alone, gravely ill, divorced, and thrown out onto the street. She sobbed uncontrollably. The pain in her heart was far worse than the fever burning through her body. She mourned her shattered marriage and the brutal betrayal. After 15 minutes of crying, Maria stopped. She took a shuddering breath and wiped her tears away with a sudden, sharp movement. Beneath the pain, something else was rising within her, cold, hard, and calculating. Her once pale face hardened. She reached under her pillow. It wasn't the pillow she usually used, it was a spare she always kept there. Her fingers brushed against a hard, thin object. She pulled it out. It was a top-of-the-line smartphone, far more advanced than the old phone that usually sat on her nightstand. This phone was her one secret, something Kyle never knew existed. It had no lock screen pattern. It unlocked with her fingerprint. The screen lit up, revealing a plain white background. There were no social media apps, only encrypted business applications. Maria opened the only contact saved in the device, labeled Miss Vance. She pressed the call button. Her heart pounded, not from fever, but from the rage building inside her. The call connected on the first ring. A calm, professional female voice answered. "Good evening, Maria. You're calling at this hour. Are you all right? I was informed you were feeling unwell." Maria took a deep breath, trying to control the tremor in her voice. "Miss Vance," she replied, her voice hoarse but icy. "Contingency plan. Activate it." There was a short pause. Then, Miss Vance's voice became serious. "Understood. What happened?" "I've been kicked out," Maria said. "Kyle divorced me. He thinks I'm a useless, sick, broke woman." "My God, the audacity of that man," Miss Vance muttered. "Miss Vance, I'm very sick. My fever is dangerously high. I need medical attention. I don't want to go to a regular hospital. Come to the house and get me. Bring a private medical team from Street Luke's private hospital. No sirens. Do it quietly. I don't want anyone to notice." "Understood. The VIP team will be there in 30 minutes. I'll come myself. Can you hold on?" Maria looked at the divorce papers on the comforter. Gathering the last of her strength, she crumpled the document in her hand. "I have to hold on, Miss Vance. The game has just begun." She ended the call. Her body still trembled with fever, but her eyes now gleamed in the darkness with a sharp, icy clarity. Kyle had just made the biggest mistake of his life. He hadn't just kicked out his wife. He had no idea he had just kicked out Maria Vance, the sole owner of M Corp, a global corporation with a net monthly profit of $10 million. Maria waited in the suffocating silence. Every tick of the clock sounded like a hammer blow. She clutched her secret phone tightly. Her mind was a whirlwind of fears. She feared Kyle might suddenly return. She feared the medical team would be delayed. Her body continued to alternate between shivering chills and unbearable heat. Exactly 25 minutes later, her phone vibrated silently. It was a text from Miss Vance. "We've arrived. The door is unlocked. The team is entering." Maria breathed a sigh of relief. She had figured Kyle, in his arrogance, wouldn't bother to lock the door. The man would never imagine his bedridden wife was capable of making a move. With the last of her energy, she threw off the comforter. Her feet touched the cold carpet. The room spun violently. She nearly fell but managed to grab onto the bedpost. She had to get out of here. With trembling hands, she grabbed a long coat hanging behind the door and put it on. She was not going to leave this house in a state of humiliation. She would not let Kyle take her dignity, too. The bedroom door opened silently. Maria flinched for a second, but then she saw two people in dark, professional uniforms, not the standard white scrubs of paramedics. They moved quickly and quietly. Behind them was Miss Vance, a woman in her 50s with a firm but kind face, dressed in a flawless business suit. Her expression turned to one of deep concern when she saw Maria's condition. "Maria," she whispered. "I'm ready, Miss Vance," Maria replied weakly. "Get her on the portable stretcher," Miss Vance commanded. The team unfolded a compact stretcher and gently helped Maria lie down. "We're administering a temporary fever reducer to make you more comfortable during transport," one of the team members said. Maria just nodded. She felt a slight prick in her arm, then a coolness spreading through her skin. As they lifted her, she took one last look at the bedroom ceiling, the room she had decorated herself, the very room that had witnessed Kyle's cruel transformation. They carried her out of the bedroom and through the lavish living room. Her eyes fell on the large wedding photo hanging on the wall, a picture of her and Kyle smiling happily. That Kyle, the gentle and attentive man from the past, no longer existed. Now, the photograph seemed like a mockery. "Leave everything? Don't take a thing," Maria whispered. "Of course. We don't need anything from here," Miss Vance replied firmly. They exited through the front door. There was no noisy ambulance in the driveway. Instead, a black, armored SUV was parked, looking more like a vehicle from a presidential motorcade. The side door slid open, revealing an interior outfitted like a VIP medical unit. Meanwhile, in a luxury high-rise downtown, Kyle was laughing. He poured a glass of champagne for Jenna, a young, beautiful woman in a delicate nightgown. "So, tomorrow we're officially the owners of that big house, darling?" Jenna asked flirtatiously. "Of course." I threw her out. "That sick woman won't dare say a thing. She has nothing. Tomorrow, I'm changing all the locks, and the day after, we'll start redecorating the bedroom," Kyle said, wrapping his arm around Jenna's waist. "How wonderful! It's finally all ours," she exclaimed. Kyle raised his glass. "To our new life." His old phone lay on the table, on silent mode. He didn't want any calls from that sick woman interrupting him. In the medical transport, gliding smoothly through the night, Maria was already being treated. A doctor waiting inside had started an IV. Her temperature is 104 degrees. "It's a severe infection, but we're already taking action. We need to get her to the hospital quickly for intensive care," the doctor said. "Miss." Vance sat on a chair beside Maria's stretcher, her face etched with worry. "Hang in there. We have everything ready at Street Luke's." Maria closed her eyes. The fever reducer was beginning to work, easing the dizziness. Her thoughts drifted back 5 years, to when this whole secret began. Kyle had been fired from his first job and had spent months in a depression. Maria, who was just a housewife at the time, tried to comfort him. He had become bitter about money. Out of pride, he forbade Maria from working. "Your job is to stay home. I'll be the one to make money," he would say, even while unemployed. But Maria, who secretly held a degree in pharmacology, felt frustrated. She was full of ideas. In her spare time between chores, she began experimenting in the kitchen, not cooking, but creating herbal, organic skincare products. She remembered old family recipes passed down from her grandmother. She used all of her personal savings to buy high-quality raw materials. After months of trials, she created a facial serum and a brightening cream with astonishing effects. She tested them on herself, and the results were remarkable. Kyle, busy with his job search, paid no attention. All he knew was that his wife was playing around in the kitchen for hours. Maria gathered her courage and started a small online store. At first, she only sold to friends, but her products quickly gained popularity through word of mouth. Orders started pouring in. It was around then that Kyle found a new job with a good salary. He started to become arrogant. He often saw Maria busy on her old phone late at night, responding to customers. "I give you money, and you're still glued to that phone. It's like you have nothing better to do," he yelled one night. Maria said nothing. That very night, she had just closed a deal worth $30,000. The turning point came when she met Miss Vance at a Women in Business seminar. Maria attended as a participant. Miss Vance was the keynote speaker. She was a former top executive of a multinational corporation who had taken early retirement. Maria worked up the nerve to approach her after the event. She showed her the products and a handwritten business proposal. Miss Vance was stunned by Maria's potential. "This product is brilliant, Maria, and your business strategy is incredibly sound," she had said. To make a long story short, Miss Vance agreed to join, not as an investor, but as a partner. She wanted to work again, and she saw Maria's vision. Together, they founded M Corp, also known as M Holdings. Maria was the owner and the creative mind behind every product. Miss Vance was the CEO, the public face of the company. Maria had only one condition, that her name never appear anywhere. She wanted to remain Kyle's ordinary wife. Ironically, with Miss Vance's connections, Maria hoped that as Kyle succeeded in his new job, he would become a better husband. But she was wrong. The more successful he became, the more arrogant he grew. Meanwhile, M Corp expanded rapidly. From skincare, they moved into high fashion. The luxury clothing and accessories designed by Maria became wildly popular in domestic and international markets: London, Paris, Shanghai, and even Tokyo. The net monthly profit of $10 million was a conservative figure. It was only Maria's personal take, not counting the company's revenue, which was tens of times higher. Maria kept all this wealth a complete secret. She continued to live simply. Even when Kyle wanted to buy a luxury house and a sports car, he had to take out a huge bank loan. He proudly claimed he got the loan because of his excellent performance at work. What he didn't know was that his troubled business loan from a year ago had been secretly acquired by an investment firm, a subsidiary of M Holdings. This meant that the luxury house and sports car he bragged about, which were used as collateral for that loan, legally no longer belonged to the bank, but to M Holdings, which meant they belonged to Maria. Maria opened her eyes. The medical transport was pulling into the VIP area of the hospital. "Miss Vance," Maria called out. Her voice was still weak, but her gaze was razor-sharp. "Yes, Maria," Miss Vance replied, moving closer. "Kyle kept the house and the car. He said they were his, that they were in his name." Miss Vance allowed herself a small, knowing smile. "He's forgotten who bailed out his business loan at First National Bank a year ago when he was on the verge of bankruptcy. And he's also forgotten," Maria continued, "that the collateral for that loan was the very house and luxury car he shows off every day. And he certainly doesn't know," Miss Vance added, "that the investment firm that bought out his entire debt is M Corp." A moment of silence fell. The doctor and paramedic in the vehicle professionally pretended not to have heard the extremely sensitive conversation. "Miss Vance," Maria said, "begin the asset recovery process. When should I start?" Maria looked at the streetlights blurring past the window. "He kicked me out tonight. He probably thinks I'll be on the street tomorrow. I want him to enjoy his little victory with that woman. Give him 3 days to celebrate." Miss Vance nodded. 3 days. We'll consider it the last free rent he gets from us. In 3 days, our legal team will move. On the 3rd day, precisely, we will reclaim everything that is rightfully yours." "Good," Maria replied, closing her eyes. "Now, focus on my treatment. I need to be healthy to watch his world come crashing down." The medical transport stopped in a private lobby. A team of specialist doctors was already waiting. Maria was moved to a presidential treatment suite. Far away, Kyle slept soundly in Jenna's arms, dreaming of his wonderful new life, unaware that his reality was set to shatter in 3 days. The victory felt too sweet for Kyle. He woke up in Jenna's luxury high-rise apartment. The morning sun streamed into the room through wide windows. Jenna was asleep, wrapped around him. Kyle looked at her pretty face and smiled with satisfaction. He had done it. He was free from the biggest burden of his life, that sick woman, Maria. He imagined Maria crying at some bus station right now, trying to get back to her parents' modest house. He chuckled softly. She wasn't his problem anymore. His new life began today. "Good morning, honey," Jenna said in a husky, flirtatious voice. "What time is it? Is that woman gone from our house yet?" "Definitely gone," he answered confidently. "I told her to be out by dawn. She has no choice. She has no money, no power. She was just a weak woman living off me." Jenna smiled broadly. She got out of bed, her silk nightgown slipping off her shoulders. "Perfect. I can't wait to move in. This apartment is luxurious, but that house is a palace. And I will be the queen." "Of course, baby. Anything you want," Kyle said. "Come on, get ready. We're having breakfast at our new home today. I'll tell the cleaning lady to throw out everything that belongs to Maria. I don't want a single trace of her left." An hour later, Kyle's luxury sports car pulled into the driveway of the large house. He got out, adjusting his sunglasses like a king. Jenna walked beside him, arm in arm, radiating arrogance. Kyle unlocked the front door. "Welcome to our palace, my queen," he said. They stepped inside. Something was wrong. The house was too quiet and too clean. Kyle had expected chaos, scattered belongings, signs of tears, but there was nothing, absolutely nothing. He went to the bedroom and opened the door. His heart beat a little faster. The room was immaculate. The bed where Maria had lain the previous night was perfectly made with crisp, white sheets. There were no signs of medicine, no broken glass. Even the carpet where Maria had dropped the glass of water was completely dry and clean. "She must have cleaned up," Kyle muttered, confused. "I'm glad she was useful for once," Jenna said from behind him. "Useful for the last time." But Kyle felt uneasy. How could Maria, with such a high fever, have left everything in this state? Where were the dirty sheets? He opened the closet. Maria's modest clothes, her long dresses, her scarves were gone. The drawers were empty, too. "She really left," Kyle murmured, feeling a wave of relief. He brushed off the discomfort. Maybe she had called a taxi and taken a small suitcase. Even better, a clean break. "Of course it's clean," Jenna said excitedly. "Now, let's measure this room. I want to replace this bed. It's too old-fashioned. I want a round bed with a canopy. And these walls need to be repainted. I want them to be gold." Jenna started running around the house, her sharp voice piercing the silence. "This sofa is hideous. Replace it. This painting is tasteless. Throw it out. This kitchen needs a complete remodel. I want an imported Italian kitchen suite." Kyle just smiled. "Yes, darling. I'll change everything. Anything for you. We'll celebrate tonight. I'll invite our closest friends. I'm ordering the most luxurious catering in the city." Kyle grabbed his phone and called his usual premium catering service. He ordered the most expensive menu: imported Wagyu beef, fresh seafood, and high-end European wines. "Understood, Mr. Anderson. The total is $2,500. As per protocol, we'll need a deposit of $1,000 now," the representative said. Kyle answered arrogantly. "Of course, send me the invoice. I'll pay with my primary credit card." He sat on the sofa Jenna hated and opened his banking app. He tried to pay the $1,000 catering deposit, entered his credit card number, and pressed pay. The phone processed for a few seconds. Then, a red notification appeared on the screen. Transaction declined. Kyle frowned. "That's strange," he muttered. "The limit on this card is still tens of thousands. The signal must be bad." He tried again. Transaction declined. "Honey, what's taking so long?" Jenna asked, busy taking selfies in the living room. "One moment, sweetie. I think the bank is having some network issues," Kyle said, trying to sound calm, though embarrassment was already creeping in. He tried another credit card from the same bank. Declined. A cold sweat began to form on Kyle's temples. This couldn't be happening. He was a VIP client. Why were all his cards being declined? He tried his debit card. Declined. Insufficient funds. Kyle's eyes widened. Insufficient funds? That was impossible. His salary had just been deposited 3 days ago. He quickly closed the payment app and opened his main mobile banking app. His heart was pounding. He entered his password. The screen loaded, and then a message appeared. "Access blocked. Please contact your nearest branch." Kyle's body went rigid. Panic began to rise in his chest. This was a disaster. He couldn't access his salary account. He couldn't use any of his credit cards. "Kyle, the catering guy just called me. He said the payment still hasn't gone through." "This is so embarrassing," Jenna shouted, her brow furrowed. "Relax, honey, relax," he said, though he was on the verge of a breakdown. He suddenly remembered he still had an emergency account with another bank, one he rarely used and wasn't tied to any line of credit. The balance was small, but there should be a few $1,000s in it. With trembling hands, he tried to pay the catering deposit from that account. Payment successful. Kyle let out a long sigh of relief. At least he had saved face in front of Jenna. "See, it was a network problem," he said with a forced smile. "Done. Catering will be here at 7 p.m. "Great. Now I need to get ready for my salon appointment," Jenna replied, cheerful again. Once Jenna left, Kyle's smile vanished instantly. His face turned pale. Something was very wrong. Why was his main account blocked? Could this have something to do with Maria? Impossible. That stupid woman was never capable of something like this. He swore he would call the bank first thing tomorrow and complain as loudly as he could. He would demand compensation for this humiliation. As he paced the room, trying to manage his anxiety, the doorbell rang. Kyle opened it. A uniformed courier stood on the doorstep, holding a large manila envelope. "Kyle Anderson?" "Yes, that's me. Certified letter. Please sign here." Kyle signed for it, closed the door, and examined the envelope. The sender was a law firm with a very expensive-sounding name, Sterling and Shaw LLP. He assumed it was the court documents approving his divorce petition. He tore it open eagerly, but inside were not papers from family court. It was a notarized demand letter, an official legal warning. His eyes quickly scanned the harsh, formal language. "Dear Mr. Anderson, on behalf of our client, M Corp., we hereby notify you that you are in breach of contract regarding your business line of credit. The total principal debt of $3.2 million is now due and payable immediately. You are given three days to settle the full amount. Failure to comply will result in our immediate commencement of foreclosure proceedings on your assets, namely one residential property located at 14 Ashwood Lane and one luxury sports vehicle." The glass Kyle was holding slipped from his hand and shattered on the marble floor. Sweat poured down his face. 3 days, $3.2 million. The house foreclosed. No, this can't be happening," he whispered, trembling. "I made a payment last week. What breach? And who the hell is M Corp?" His victory celebration had suddenly turned into the beginning of a nightmare. That night, amidst the music and laughter of his friends and Jenna, Kyle could only manage a fake smile. His mind was in chaos. He felt an invisible trap slowly tightening around his neck. He couldn't sleep at all. Beside him, Jenna slept soundly, exhausted from the party. But in Kyle's mind, the words from the notice played on a loop. $3.2 million. 3 days, foreclosure, M Corp. As dawn broke over the city, Kyle shot out of bed. His whole body ached, his eyes bloodshot. He didn't shower, just splashed water on his face and threw on some clothes. He no longer cared how he looked. By 8 a.m., just as the bank opened, Kyle was speeding in his car toward the main branch of his bank, where he was a VIP client. He had to sort this mess out. It had to be a mistake by the bank. It had to be. At 8 a.m. sharp, Kyle practically ran inside. He bypassed the line of regular customers and went straight to the VIP services desk. "I'm Kyle Anderson. I want to see the branch manager, now," he said loudly, slamming his VIP card on the counter. The teller, startled, immediately attended to him. He was led into a private room. 5 minutes later, a client relationship manager entered, impeccably dressed. It wasn't the branch manager. "Good morning, Mr. Anderson. How can I help you?" "Let me take a look at your account." "Cut the crap," Kyle snapped rudely. "Explain to me why all my credit cards are blocked, why my salary account is frozen, and why I received this ridiculous breach of contract notice." The manager looked calmly at his computer screen. "I'm sorry for the inconvenience, Mr. Anderson. Let me check." That's interesting." "What's interesting?" Kyle roared. The manager looked up. It wasn't us who blocked your accounts or cards, sir. The fact is, your balance is actually zero, and your credit card limits are completely maxed out. Impossible, Kyle shouted. My salary is 6 figures, and my credit limit is in the hundreds of thousands. I didn't spend anything yesterday. That's correct. But our system shows an automatic emergency withdrawal against your business line of credit last night at 12:01 a.m. That withdrawal wiped out your entire salary account balance and simultaneously used up the remaining limit on all your credit cards. Kyle turned pale. An emergency withdrawal? From who? The manager checked the screen again. It wasn't initiated by us. It was an order from the new owner of your credit line. New owner? Kyle asked, his voice trembling. According to our records, the $2 million business loan you previously held with our bank was sold 6 months ago to a private investment firm called M Corp. We now only act as the agency managing the monthly payments. Kyle's heart sank. M Corp. Why would they do that? I've never missed a payment. The manager shook his head. That's beyond our purview, sir. According to the notification we received last night from M Corp, you were found to be in violation of the loan sale agreement's terms. When a breach occurs, M Corp has the right to forcibly withdraw funds from your accounts as an initial late penalty, and it appears that's exactly what they did. Kyle felt his legs give way and grabbed the edge of the desk. How? How could I be in breach? We don't know the specifics, the manager replied. They are undoubtedly detailed in the legal notice you received. You'll need to speak directly with M Corp or their lawyers, he added, his tone as neutral as if he were discussing the weather. Kyle stumbled out of the bank. The sky seemed to spin, and his shirt was soaked with sweat. He got into his sports car, the car that would be repossessed in 2 days. His hands were shaking uncontrollably. M Corp. That name again. He pulled out his phone and searched for M Corp online. A massive conglomerate appeared, M Corp Group, operating in high fashion, global cosmetics, and real estate. Its logo was everywhere. Kyle had seen it before but had never paid it any mind. Why? Why would such a huge company buy my pathetic little debt? He muttered desperately. Then he remembered the name on the demand letter. Sterling and Shaw, LLP. Mustering his courage, he dialed the number on the document. Good morning, this is Kyle Anderson. I received a legal notice on behalf of M Corp. There must be a mistake. I haven't breached anything. The voice on the other end was cold and calm. There is no mistake, Mr. Anderson. Our client is acting within their legal rights. You have violated Clause 11, Section B of the credit agreement you signed. Clause 11, Section B? What's that? If you didn't bother to read what you signed, Mr. Anderson, that clause states that you are obligated to maintain familial harmony and refrain from any immoral or dishonorable acts that could damage the image of the business loan. Kyle froze. A chill ran down his spine. That clause is absurd. It has nothing to do with the debt. It has everything to do with it, Mr. Anderson. When your loan was sold to our client, all clauses, especially this morality clause, became fully active. Our client values family ethics highly. Your act of divorcing and evicting your gravely ill wife, Maria, to go live with another woman constitutes a serious breach of Clause 11, Section B. Kyle stopped breathing for a moment. How? How did you know? We have irrefutable proof, Mr. Anderson. Photographs, audio recordings, and witnesses. We know you kicked your wife out 2 nights ago. That is the basis for the breach of contract claim. Kyle's knees buckled. Maria. This was all because of Maria. But how? How was Maria connected to M Corp? What did they want from him? Give me some time. I'll pay in installments, Kyle begged, his voice trembling. It's too late for that. Our client is not interested in installments. As per the legal notice, you have, let's see, 2 days and 8 hours left to pay the full $3.2 million. If you fail to do so, our repossession team will seize your house and your car. The call ended. Kyle threw his phone against the dashboard and screamed inside the car. $3.2 million in 2 days. It was impossible. His salary was frozen. His only assets were the house and car that, it turned out, didn't belong to him. He tried to think clearly. This is Maria's doing. But how? Did Maria work as a janitor at M Corp and complain to her boss? No, impossible. It made no sense. He tried to find out who owned M Corp. He opened a business news website. The owner was anonymous. The company was run by a CEO named Miss Alina Vance. Alina. Kyle frowned. The name sounded familiar. Suddenly, he remembered. Years ago, Maria had once mentioned a friend named Alina from her church group, who was an incredible person. Kyle had always laughed at her. Probably just some local women's club, he'd said. What if that church group friend was actually the CEO of M Corp? Kyle's head throbbed. This was too much. He had to find Maria. He had to beg her. He had to plead with her to withdraw the complaint with Miss Vance. Yes, that was the only way. He started the car immediately. He needed to know where Maria was. He had to go to her parents' modest home. He had to go now. As he pulled out of the bank's parking lot, his phone rang. It was Jenna. Kyle ignored it. She called again. Annoyed, he answered. What? Where are you, honey? And why are you yelling? Come back quick. The credit card you gave me this morning was also declined at the salon. I'm dying of embarrassment. Do you even have any money? Kyle slammed his fist on the steering wheel. More trouble. I have an emergency. What? My money? No. Wire me some money right now. I told you I have an emergency. He hung up abruptly. At the salon, Jenna stared at her phone in shock. It was the first time Kyle had ever yelled at her. She began to suspect something was very, very wrong. Kyle wasn't thinking about Jenna anymore. He floored the gas pedal. He had to find Maria. He would get on his knees if he had to. He didn't know that Maria, the woman he was desperately seeking, was recovering in a private suite in her corporate office on the top floor of the M Corp Tower, reviewing every detail of Kyle's panic and reports from her legal team. There was no escape for Kyle. The second day was hell. His trip to Maria's parents' house was fruitless. The house was small and modest, just as he remembered. But Maria's parents, though not wealthy, looked at him with a mixture of hatred and pity. Maria wasn't there. They didn't know where she was. You threw my daughter out when she was sick, didn't you? Maria's father asked, his voice trembling with suppressed rage. And now you come looking for her? Get out, and don't you ever set foot on this property again. Kyle returned to the city empty-handed. The little money left in his emergency account was gone, spent on gas for the trip. That night, he and Jenna had a massive fight. She wanted to know what was happening. On the verge of a breakdown, Kyle confessed. He told her it was an administrative problem and that his accounts were temporarily frozen. Jenna wasn't a fool. She had seen the notarized demand letter on the table. $3.2 million. 3 days. Foreclosure. You're broke, Kyle. Jenna screamed hysterically. It's temporary. I'll fix it. This is all Maria's fault, he yelled back. I don't care whose fault it is. I'm not going to live with a poor man, Jenna shouted back. That night, they slept with their backs to each other in the cold, luxurious bed. Kyle couldn't close his eyes. The countdown echoed in his head. Tomorrow was the third day. The morning of the third day was the most terrifying of his life. The sun rose, but it felt like the end of the world. At 9 a.m., while he and Jenna were eating breakfast in unbearable silence, the doorbell rang. They looked at each other, both of their faces pale. Kyle shook his head. Don't open it. Let's pretend we're not home. The doorbell rang again, this time louder, followed by a knock. Mr. Anderson, we know you're in there. We are the repossession team from Sterling & Shaw LLP. Kyle's heart stopped. Jenna started to cry. What are we going to do, Kyle? What are we going to do? She sobbed desperately. Gripped by terror, Kyle ran to the back door. He thought he could escape through the yard, but when he opened the kitchen door, 2 large security guards were already standing there. Please remain inside, they said firmly. Kyle was trapped. He went back to the living room. When the legal team managed to open the front door with a locksmith they had brought, a man in an impeccable suit entered, holding a folder. Behind him, several bailiffs carried repossession stickers. Mr. Anderson, your 3 days have expired, the lawyer said coldly. By court order, we are beginning the foreclosure of this house and all assets within it to settle the outstanding debt to our client, M Corp. No, please, give me time, Kyle begged, falling to his knees. All his arrogance had vanished in an instant. "I'll pay, I promise. Just give me 1 more week." The lawyer shook his head. "You were given more than enough time. Our team will now begin their work. You may take the personal belongings you are currently wearing. You have 15 minutes to vacate the premises voluntarily." 15 minutes? Jenna shrieked. In that moment, Jenna finally understood the reality. She looked at Kyle, who was on his knees, crying like a child. The man she thought was a king was now nothing more than a beggar. Jenna's face hardened. She was not going down with him. Without a word, she ran to her room. Confused, Kyle shouted, "Jenna, where are you going? Help me!" The bailiffs began to enter. They didn't care about the drama. They slapped "Repossessed by M Corp" stickers on the flat-screen TV, the luxury sofa, the expensive paintings. Outside, the sound of a tow truck arriving could be heard, ready to take Kyle's sports car. 5 minutes later, Jenna came downstairs. She wasn't crying anymore. She was dragging 2 huge suitcases. No one knew how she had managed to pack them so quickly. She ignored Kyle, who was staring at her in desperation, and walked straight to the front door. "Jenna, are you leaving me?" Kyle cried, his voice breaking. Jenna stopped and turned around. Her face was full of hatred. "Leaving you? Of course. I'm not going to live with a loser and a broke man like you. I thought you were a king, but you're just a clown. Enjoy being ruined alone, Kyle. I've called a cab. Goodbye." Jenna walked out with her suitcases, past the bailiffs, without a single glance back. Kyle was frozen, betrayed and abandoned, just as he had abandoned Maria 3 days ago. The difference was, he had kicked Maria out when she was sick, and Jenna had left him at the lowest point of his life. "Your time is up, Mr. Anderson," a security guard said, grabbing his arm. Kyle was dragged out of his own house. He was thrown onto the hot sidewalk. He was still in his pajamas. He watched as his beloved sports car was pulled out of the garage by the tow truck. He watched as the door to his house was chained and sealed. Everything was lost. In just 3 days, Kyle collapsed helplessly on the curb. Passers-by stared at him with a mixture of confusion and disgust. The man who had been so arrogant was now a public spectacle. He was alone, with no money, no home, and no one. In his extreme panic, in his indescribable humiliation, his mind could only think of one name, the cause of it all, Maria. He checked his pockets. His old phone was still there. He didn't know who else to call. He wanted to curse Maria. He wanted to beg her. He didn't know. He just had to let it out. With trembling hands, he found the contact. Maria, wife. He pressed call. He didn't expect her to answer. Maybe the number had changed, or the phone was off. But the call went through. 1 ring, 2, and on the 3rd, it connected. "Hello?" It was Maria's voice, but not the weak, sick voice he remembered. It was calm, clear, and cold. Kyle, who had been ready to scream, suddenly felt small, and he broke down, sobbing. A cry that shattered him, the cry of a defeated man. "Maria," he wailed hysterically. "Maria, help me, please. I don't know what happened." "They took our house. They took the car. They threw me out. I'm on the street. Maria, why is this happening?" On the 40th floor of the M Corp Tower, in a VIP suite converted into a temporary office, Maria sat calmly. She was no longer sick. She was healthy, strong, and incredibly dignified. A satin, emerald green scarf framed her determined face. In front of her, in a meeting, sat Miss Vance and several department heads. The old phone, which Maria had asked to be brought from the house, vibrated on the table. The screen lit up with Kyle's name. The meeting paused. All eyes turned to Maria. She raised a hand, asking for silence. She looked at Miss Vance and gave a barely perceptible smile. She pressed the speakerphone button so everyone could hear. Kyle's hysterical sobs filled the room. "Maria, help me, please. I don't know what happened. They took our house. They took the car. I'm on the street. Maria, why is this happening?" Maria waited until Kyle finished sobbing. She gestured for everyone to remain silent, The contrast between the quiet conference room and Kyle's desperate voice was staggering. When he finally fell quiet, Maria leaned toward the microphone. She answered in a calm, even voice, a voice Kyle had never heard before. "I'm sorry, who is this?" Absolute silence on the other end. The I Kyle was trying to form died in his throat. What? It's me, Kyle. It's me, Maria. Your husband." "Oh, Kyle," Maria said in an indifferent tone, as if speaking to a stranger. "I believe there's been a misunderstanding. First, you are no longer my husband. My divorce papers were filed this morning." Kyle's breath caught in his throat. This was Maria's voice, but not the submissive Maria he had humiliated. This was a voice full of power. "Maria, where are you?" he whispered, terrified. "What have you done?" "Your voice. You sound healthy." "I'm in an important meeting right now," Maria replied. She leaned back in her chair, gazing out at the city through the massive glass window behind her. "We're discussing our business expansion into the Middle East, something you wouldn't understand." "Business, you know? Business?" Kyle was bewildered. "Maria, stop talking nonsense. Help me," he pleaded again. "I know this is your doing. It must be that friend of yours from that group, Miss Vance." "Yes, you complained to her." "Please, Maria, tell her to stop this." "I'll do anything. I'll come back to you. I'll leave Jenna, I promise." A cold, cynical laugh came through the speaker. It was Maria. "Come back to me? Do you really think I'd pick up trash I've already thrown out? As for Jenna, you're too late, Kyle. She left you an hour ago, right when the repossession team arrived. My legal team informed me a minute ago." Kyle felt as if a bucket of ice water had been poured over him. Maria knew everything. She had been watching it all. "Who are you?" Kyle whispered in terror. "Who the hell are you, Maria?" Maria smiled. "You really want to know, Kyle? All those years you lived with me, you insulted me, calling me a sick, useless woman who just plays on her phone. You never once wondered what I was actually doing on that phone." "What do you mean?" Kyle asked, trembling. Maria gestured to Miss Vance. She spoke into the phone. "Hello, Kyle. You're speaking with the board of directors of M Corp." Kyle immediately recognized the calm voice from the call about the demand letter. "Miss Vance? Why do you have Maria's phone? What's your connection to my wife?" "She's not my friend, Kyle." Maria's voice cut in, cold as ice. "She's my right-hand woman, the CEO who runs the company for me." The silence became heavy as lead. Kyle tried to process the information. His eyes burned, but he still couldn't comprehend what he was hearing. Maria continued, walking calmly toward the window. She looked down at the street, at the exact spot where Kyle was likely sitting like a beggar. "You asked who I am," she said, her back to the room. Kyle's voice was a slight tremor, though he didn't dare speak yet. "You called the number of your broke wife, the one you abandoned," Maria went on. "But let me introduce myself properly." There was an authority in Maria's voice she had never shown before. "Hello, Kyle. You are speaking to Maria Vance, the sole owner, founder, and president of M Corp, the company with a net monthly profit of $10 million, and the very company that just seized all of your assets." The phone slipped from Kyle's hand, hitting the pavement with a dull thud. He froze, his eyes wide, staring at the hot asphalt. For a moment, he stopped breathing. His world hadn't just collapsed. It had ceased to exist. Kyle crumpled onto the dirty sidewalk, catatonic. The phone lay beside him, its screen cracked, but the call was still connected. He could hear Maria's calm breathing on the other end, so unlike the frantic pounding of his own heart. "No, impossible," Kyle whispered, his voice broken. "This has to be a nightmare. Maria, you're lying, right? This is all a lie." Maria's voice came again, cold, detached, sharp. "I don't have time for lies, Kyle. I'm a busy woman. But since today is the day of your downfall, I will grant you one more minute of my time." There was a pause. Kyle kept staring at the asphalt as if looking for answers there. "Lift your head, Kyle," Maria commanded. He obeyed slowly, as if his body weighed a ton. He raised his gaze across the avenue. On the other side of the street, a skyscraper of blue glass towered over everything. At its peak, 3 huge metal letters glinted. MCP. "That building?" Kyle whispered, his throat dry. "Yes," Maria replied. The M Corp Tower. I'm on the 40th floor. I can see you quite clearly from my window. You look so pathetic, sitting on the sidewalk. The security guards in that area will be shooing you away soon." A cold terror snaked up Kyle's spine. Maria was watching him from above. "Come to the lobby," she ordered. "I want to see you. I want to see the face of an arrogant man crumble with my own eyes." The call ended. Kyle remained motionless for a full minute, his body paralyzed with fear. He had nothing left. No house, no car, no Jenna, no reputation. And now, his dignity was about to be annihilated. He had no choice. Where else could he go? A mixture of morbid curiosity and a foolish hope that he could beg for forgiveness forced him to his feet. His pajamas were dusty, but he walked toward the glass doors of the M Corp Tower anyway, ignoring the honking cars and confused stares. The lobby was another world. Imported marble shone like a mirror. An artificial waterfall cascaded down one wall. Impeccably dressed employees moved with purpose. The cold, conditioned air hit his sweaty skin, and he shivered. Kyle stood there, rooted to the spot, disoriented, utterly out of place, like a stain on a white canvas. A beautiful receptionist looked at him with a mix of disdain and suspicion. "Excuse me, sir," she said, her hostility clear. "Can I help you?" Kyle stammered. "I'm here to see Maria." "Maria?" The receptionist raised an eyebrow. "President Vance? Do you have an appointment?" "No, but she asked me to come. Tell her it's Kyle." "I'm sorry, sir. Without an appointment, you cannot enter," she replied, picking up the phone to call security. "Let him pass." A firm voice made the receptionist freeze. Kyle turned. Miss Vance stood there, flanked by 2 security guards. Her expression was calm, but her eyes held an icy contempt. "So, this is Kyle," she said. He recognized her instantly. The woman from Maria's church group. "It's Miss Vance," she corrected him coldly. "Let me be clear. I'm not her friend from a group. I am her CEO. Now, follow me. President Vance is waiting for you." Kyle was escorted through the lobby without resistance. All eyes were on him, a disheveled man in dirty pajamas, accompanied by the CEO and security. Whispers started. He wanted to hide his face in shame, but he had no pride left to protect. He wasn't taken to the main elevators. Miss Vance stopped in a VIP waiting area in the center of the lobby. "Wait here. President Vance will be down shortly." Kyle's heart pounded so hard it hurt. He felt like he was waiting for his own death sentence. Every second stretched into an eternity. Then, the private elevator chimed softly. The entire lobby seemed to freeze. Employees stopped walking. The receptionist stopped typing. The security guards stood straighter. Some employees even bowed their heads respectfully. The VIP elevator doors opened. First, 2 bodyguards in black suits emerged and took positions on either side. And then, Maria appeared. Kyle's breath hitched. It felt like his heart had stopped. It was Maria, but not the Maria he knew. The woman walking toward him looked like a queen. She wore a sapphire blue, tailored pantsuit that fit her perfectly. A silk scarf of the same shade framed her elegant face. Her skin looked fresh, her makeup subtle but accentuating her sharp gaze. She walked with a confidence that filled the air. Her heels clicked softly on the marble floor. She exuded an aura of power and wealth that was both intimidating and undeniable. Employees bowed their heads as she passed. "Good afternoon, President." Kyle trembled. That word president pierced his chest. Miss Vance stepped forward and bowed slightly. "President, he is waiting." Maria nodded, her eyes fixed on Kyle. She walked slowly toward him, crushing his pride with every step. She stopped exactly 3 feet from him and looked him up and down, from his tangled hair to his worn-out sandals. Her gaze was cold, analytical, without a single note of mercy. "Yes, Kyle." "It's me," Maria said, her clear voice echoing through the lobby. "The sick, broke woman you abandoned 3 days ago." Kyle couldn't take it anymore. All his strength evaporated. His knees gave way, and he collapsed onto the cold marble floor. He knelt before her, sobbing uncontrollably. "Maria, I'm sorry. Please. I was wrong. I was blind." He tried to grab the hem of Maria's pantsuit, but his hands were shaking too much and slipped off. Everyone watching was stunned. The scene was shocking. A man weeping hysterically at the feet of the corporation's president. The bodyguards stepped forward, but Maria raised a hand, ordering them to stop. She wanted him to feel every second of this humiliation. "Forgive me, Maria. Give me our house back, please. I'll divorce Jenna. I'll be your husband again. Maria looked down at him without a shred of emotion. There was no pity, no anger, just an icy void. She leaned down slightly, not to help him up, but to whisper. "Get up," she commanded. Her voice was quiet, but it held a steel authority that would make anyone shiver. Mustering the last of his strength, Kyle managed to stand, trembling. His face was a mess of tears and sweat. He could barely stay on his feet. Maria looked him directly in the eyes, her own devoid of compassion. "You want to beg?" she asked, her voice now loud enough for everyone around to hear clearly. "What a pity, Kyle. My corporation does not hire beggars." With that, Maria took a silk handkerchief from her purse. For a moment, Kyle thought she might offer it to him to wipe his tears. But no. Maria simply used the handkerchief to brush an imaginary speck of dust from her own sleeve, as if she had touched something filthy, as if he were a contagious object. "My company," she repeated firmly, "does not hire beggars." With those words, she turned with absolute grace and walked back toward the elevator. "Miss Vance, handle him," Maria ordered without looking back. "Give him this, as a final lesson." "Understood, President," Miss Vance replied. The elevator doors closed softly, and Maria disappeared from view. Kyle was left standing there, crucified by a humiliation he could never have imagined, far worse than losing his house or car. Miss Vance approached him, her steps firm. "Come, Kyle, let's finish this. There's something Maria wants you to see." "What more? What else are you going to take from me?" Kyle cried out, desperate, almost choking. "This isn't about taking more," Miss Vance replied. "It's about you understanding just how incredibly foolish you've been all this time." 2 security guards came to his side, grabbed his arms, and dragged him to a luxurious conference room on the mezzanine level. They pushed him into a chair, leaving him in the cold, silent room. A huge glass window allowed a full view of the lobby from inside and allowed everyone in the lobby to see him. Kyle had never felt more exposed. Miss Vance sat opposite him, accompanied by 2 impeccably dressed men, undoubtedly lawyers. Kyle dropped his head, staring at the marble floor. He felt he had nothing left. Nothing to defend, nothing to lose. "Kyle," Miss Vance began, "you still don't understand how the wife you called useless, broke, and sick Maria could possibly be the owner of everything you've seen today." Kyle didn't answer. He had no strength left. Miss Vance pressed a button. A huge screen descended from the ceiling onto the table, and the lights dimmed slightly. As the screen lit up, a large, clear title appeared. M Corp Holdings, Business and Financial Report. "All right," Miss Vance said. "Let the lesson begin. Let's go back 5 years. Charts, balance sheets, massive figures, profit and loss statements, they all began to appear on the screen, making Kyle's eyes burn. 5 years ago," she explained, "you had just been fired from your first job. You were depressed, angry, blaming the world. While you were complaining, looking for work, and cursing your bad luck, your wife, the woman you only ever saw as a simple housewife, started working in the kitchen." Kyle lifted his head slightly, bewildered. "And she wasn't cooking for you," Miss Vance added, as if reading his mind. "She was developing skincare formulas, using herbal recipes passed down in her family. When you mocked her for being on her phone late at night, she was actually responding to hundreds of her first customers." Kyle's face tensed. "When you finally found a new job and started feeling superior, she rented a small office to set up her first production space. The screen changed to show photos. A tiny office, then a larger warehouse, then a modern, spacious, professional factory. Images of M Corp Holdings branches in London, Paris, Shanghai, and Tokyo also appeared. "M Corp, Kyle," Miss Vance said. "It stands for Maria Corporation. Maria is your wife's name. This company, this building, every single asset is 100% hers." Kyle's trembling intensified. "But the money?" he asked, barely able to speak. Miss Vance smiled coldly. You always underestimated her because she never asked for anything, did you? You were so proud to give her a monthly allowance of $300. And when you were angry, you even cut that. You called her broke. She press another button. A huge number appeared in the screen. Asterisk. 10 million asterisk. That, she said, is Maria's personal net income. Per month, it went directly into an account in her name, an account you never even knew existed. Kyle felt the blood drain from his face. An income far exceeding that of your own company's CEO, she continued. And yet, you insulted her and kicked her out of your house, accusing her of being broke. The world started spinning around him. And your debt, Miss Vance added with surgical precision. The $2 million business loan you took out to buy that house and that luxury car. Kyle's eyes widened as if he'd been struck. When your side businesses went sour and you were on the verge of bankruptcy, that loan went into default. The bank was ready to foreclose on all your assets. But Maria found out. Through me, M Corp acquired your entire debt. We paid it off in full. Kyle sat motionless, unable to breathe. So that house and that car have belonged to M Corp for a full year, Kyle. She chose not to tell you, so as not to destroy you. She let you keep living there, keep bragging, keep feeling successful. She respected you as her husband. She hoped you would change. Tears rolled down Kyle's face again. They were tears not of remorse, but of pure, stubborn stupidity. She knew. She knew I was, he stammered. That you had another woman, Miss Vance finished. Of course, she knew. She knew everything. One of the lawyers interjected. And now, Mr. Anderson, let's look at the evidence. The screen changed again, this time showing recordings. First, the living room appeared. Kyle, affectionately embracing Jenna on the sofa 6 months ago, right when Maria had to leave for a business trip. The video shifted to the bedroom. Jenna trying on Maria's clothes and scarves, laughing, throwing them on the floor, and Kyle laughing along as if it were a game. Then came the final video, the most devastating one. 3 days ago, the same bedroom. Kyle standing at the foot of the bed, Maria, weak, lying down, and his voice dripping with contempt. Hey, you sick, useless woman. I've already prepared the divorce papers. You're getting out of this house tomorrow. Stop, Kyle screamed, covering his face with both hands. Please, stop. The screen went black. Silence engulfed the room. Hidden cameras, the lawyer said calmly. Maria had them installed a year ago when she began to suspect you were having an affair. Kyle was destroyed. She's going to send me to prison, he whispered. That was the initial plan, Miss Vance replied. We had charges for verbal abuse, endangerment, and adultery. Enough to put you away for years. A chill ran down his back. But Maria changed her mind. She said prison would be too comfortable for you. She wants you to experience something worse. She placed a thin folder in front of him. This is Maria's official divorce petition. It also includes a lawsuit for emotional damages. With trembling hands, Kyle opened the folder. Maria wasn't asking for a division of assets. She didn't want his dirty money. She was only reclaiming the house and car that were already hers. But he still had to pay for his actions. Kyle's eyes nearly bulged out of their sockets when he saw the amount in the lawsuit. $500,000. $500,000! He screamed in despair. I don't have any money. You took everything from me. Of course you don't, miss, Vance replied coldly, a frosty smile on her face. But you still have your job, don't you? She paused, pretending to remember something. Oh, I almost forgot, her smile widened. Breaking news, Kyle. An hour ago, M Corp finalized the acquisition of a 70% stake in the company where you work. What? And as the new majority shareholder, she continued in a serene tone, President Vance's first order was a complete restructuring of the management. Your termination letter has already been signed. She looked him directly in the eyes. You are officially fired. It was the final nail in Kyle's coffin. He had lost absolutely everything. His house, his car, his wife, his savings, and now his job. The very source of his pride. You're monsters! Kyle screamed, his voice breaking. "We're just serving justice," Miss Vance replied. "And as for the $500,000 damages claim, Maria was very kind. She knows you'll never be able to pay it, so she's giving you one option." Miss Vance slid another piece of paper toward him. "Sign this statement." Kyle looked down. It was a confession. He was admitting to his marital infidelity, his verbal abuse, and his act of endangerment. "If you admit to your actions," the lawyer explained, "the debt will be forgiven." He stared at the paper. It was the last shred of pride he had left. "And why do you need this?" he muttered. One of the lawyers calmly answered, "Simply as insurance, so you don't go around spreading false stories." Kyle had no way out. Fired, bankrupt, homeless. With a trembling hand, he took the pen offered to him and signed the confession to all his deeds. "Done," Miss Vance said, quickly gathering the documents. At that moment, the door to the conference room opened again. Maria walked in. She stopped in front of Kyle, who sat with his head bowed, defeated, destroyed. "You divorced me, Kyle?" she asked quietly. "You threw divorce papers at me while I was sick?" Maria took out the very same folder he had tossed at her in their bedroom. Miss Vance had saved it. Right in front of Kyle's eyes, Maria slowly tore up the divorce petition he had filed. The pieces fluttered down onto his lap, one by one. "Now, I'm divorcing you," she said with absolute finality, "and I promise you will not leave with a single cent." She gave him one last look. "Get out of my building." The two security guards who had accompanied her earlier immediately entered. "Take out the trash," Miss Vance ordered. Kyle didn't resist. He was already in a complete daze. They grabbed him and dragged him away. They hauled him through the lobby, full of employees. Everyone stared at him with a mixture of pity and disgust. The automatic glass doors opened, and Kyle was thrown onto the hot pavement. He landed in a heap, no money, no job, no home, dressed only in his dirty pajamas. Ironically, the only thing he had left was the signed confession that freed him from his debt. His fall was complete. For the second time that day, Kyle collapsed onto the hot asphalt. The glass doors of the M-Corp tower closed behind him, separating him from the luxurious world he had just learned belonged to Maria. He coughed, the street dust catching in his throat. His face was wet with tears, sweat, and grime. For a moment he was frozen, his mind unable to process how his life had been dismantled so quickly and so perfectly. Fired, bankrupt, dumped by his mistress, and publicly humiliated by the wife he had called trash. The confession he had just signed felt like a death sentence. Passers-by glanced at him, a man in dirty pajamas crying in front of a luxury building. A security guard stood at the entrance, watching to make sure he didn't try to go back inside. Kyle knew he had to leave. He couldn't sit here forever. Gathering what little strength he had, he got to his feet. His knees were shaking. He started walking aimlessly. Where could he go? He had no home. He checked his pockets. Empty. His broken phone had been left in the lobby when they dragged him out. He now had absolutely nothing but the clothes on his back. His stomach growled. He was hungry. The last time he'd eaten was that tense breakfast with Jenna. Hours had passed. The sun was beginning to set, the air hot and suffocating. He thought of his friends, his party friends. Maybe they would lend him some money. He walked for miles to a cafe where they usually met. He walked in, his face full of shame. Some of his friends were there. "Kyle? Oh my God, what happened to you?" one of them asked, shocked at his appearance. Kyle told a distorted version of the story. "I was set up, man. My accounts are frozen. Can you spot me some cash?" The friend, who initially looked concerned, suddenly grew cold. "Sorry, Kyle, the news is already all over the group chat. You got fired, right? And M-Corp seized your property." Kyle froze. "How do you know?" "Everyone knows. You messed with M-Corp. You're crazy." "I'm sorry, Kyle, but I can't help you. I don't want any trouble with them." And he quickly walked away. The rest of his friends pretended not to see him. Kyle was left alone in the middle of the cafe. The waiter promptly kicked him out. He was back on the street, more humiliated than ever. He was now an outcast. No one wanted to be associated with him, fearing Maria's shadow. Night fell. Kyle was still hungry. He curled up in front of a closed shop, using his arms as a pillow. He shivered in the cool night air. The buzz of mosquitoes and the stench from a nearby sewer were his companions as he tried to sleep. This was his instant karma. Meanwhile, across town, Jenna was in a panic. She had managed to escape Kyle's house with 2 suitcases full of clothes and designer bags. She rented a cheap motel room. She started calling other wealthy men on her list. She needed to find a replacement, fast. "Hello, Mr. Harrison? It's Jenna. Are you busy? Want to get some dinner?" she asked in a flirty voice over the phone. "Jenna? Which Jenna?" the man replied. "You know Jenna. We met at the party." "Oh, Jenna. Kyle Anderson's girlfriend. The broke guy. Got it." The man's voice changed instantly. "Sorry, I'm busy. Don't call again." He hung up. Jenna froze. She called another man. The response was the same. The news of Kyle's downfall had spread like wildfire, and Jenna's name was tarnished along with it. She was now a disgraced mistress. Her reputation in elite circles was destroyed. No one wanted to be near her, but her bad luck didn't end there. As she cried in her motel room, there was a knock on the door. 2 people in impeccable suits stood outside. "Jenna Miller? We're from Sterling and Shaw LLP. They served her with a court summons." Jenna's heart stopped. Maria was suing her. The charges: adultery, defamation, and destruction of private property. The compensation demanded was $1 million. $1 million! She screamed hysterically. She didn't have that kind of money. All her clothes and bags were gifts from Kyle. The following days became a nightmare for both villains. Jenna was left with nothing. She couldn't even afford a lawyer. She started selling her designer bags one by one, for next to nothing, just to survive and pay for the motel room. Kyle, after 3 days of hunger and sleeping on the street, finally swallowed his pride. He needed to eat. He went to the city's wholesale market, where day laborers worked. His once handsome face was now grimy, a patchy, unkempt beard growing on his cheeks. "You need help?" he asked the foreman. The foreman looked him up and down. "You look a little too clean for this work. Can you haul sacks of rice?" "I'm strong. I need to eat," Kyle begged, his voice cracking. "Haul those sacks of rice from there to the truck. I'll pay you $2 a sack." And so began Kyle's new life. The man who once wore impeccable shirts and drove a luxury sports car now sweated under the scorching sun, carrying sacks of rice that weighed 100 pounds. His body, once fit from a gym membership, was now thin and gaunt. His skin was sunburned, dark, and dirty. His muscles were defined not by workouts at an expensive club, but by endless hard labor. His back ached constantly. And his hands were covered in blisters and cuts. He had long forgotten the smell of a clean shirt or expensive cologne. Now, he only knew the stench of sweat, market garbage, and cheap tobacco. As for Jenna, Kyle no longer cared. The last rumor he'd heard from the other laborers was that Jenna, having lost the lawsuit to Maria, was drowning in debt. To survive, she ended up working as a waitress in a seedy nightclub. Word was she had been arrested during a raid a few weeks ago. Her fate was far worse than simple poverty. She was completely destroyed. Kyle felt no pity. He felt nothing at all. His heart was already dead. He worked like a machine. Lift a sack, get paid, buy rice, sleep. It was the only cycle left in his life. That day, after 12 hours of non-stop work, Kyle received his day's pay. $70 in crumpled bills. He left the market, dragging his aching feet. He stopped at his usual food stall. "1 plate of rice with a side. To go," he said. With the container of food in his hand, he walked to a large intersection. He sat on the dirty curb, leaning his back against a traffic light pole. He opened the container, which held his only dinner for the day. Across the street, a giant screen on the side of a building suddenly lit up. It was broadcasting a live business news program. Kyle stopped lifting the rice to his mouth. The plastic fork froze in midair. On that giant screen was Maria's face. It was a live broadcast from M Corp's global launch event that morning. Maria's clear, serene, composed face filled the multi-story screen. A foreign journalist asked a question in English, which appeared translated on the screen. "President Vance, you are currently one of the wealthiest and most influential women in the country. What is the secret to your success?" Kyle held his breath. He saw Maria give a slight smile. "There is no secret," she replied, her voice echoing across the intersection. I just never stopped working. I never stopped believing in my abilities, even when the person closest to me underestimated me and called me useless. The food container slipped from Kyle's hands. The rice and side dish scattered across the dirty sidewalk, but he didn't care. His eyes were glued to the screen. Up there, almost touching the sky, the woman he once called sick and broke was being interviewed like a global business queen. And down here, on the hot asphalt, the man who once thought himself a king sat like a beggar, staring at the remnants of his dinner mixed with dust. Kyle lowered his head until his chin nearly touched his chest. He wasn't crying. He was laughing, a dry, empty, desperate laugh. He had lost, not just money, not just status, he had lost everything. The woman he had abandoned now had the world at her feet, and he had nothing, not even the dignity to pick up the rice he had dropped. Karma had done its job. If this story touched your heart, please support us by liking and subscribing to the channel. New stories are already waiting for you on the screen.